On the path from the mortal world to the underworld, there's more than just the Naiha Bridge and Mengpa. There's also me, facing thousands of souls, welcoming and bidding them farewell. My name is Kuan Yin. I don't know when I was born nor where I will go. I only guard the boundary between yin and yang, constantly residing in the moments of life and death. I am the first gatekeeper on the Yellow Springs Road. In my hands, I hold two lamps, one to illuminate the path westward for souls, and the other to help them remember their earthly homes. Souls can only cross the Naiha Bridge and enter reincarnation after both lamps are extinguished, symbolizing the saying, when a person dies, their light goes out. As usual, I stood by the roadside, waiting for souls to arrive. Suddenly, a fierce wind arose, ghostly flames flickered, and the flames of my two precious lamps surged, lighting up half of the Yellow Springs Road as if it were daytime. A misty, bustling carriage driven by the Oxhead and Horseface approached. Even before the magnificent carriage got close, I caught a whiff of a virtuous soul's fragrant aura. After hearing the greed, anger, and delusion of countless beings every day, it's rare to encounter a virtuous soul. It seems a new official is about to be appointed in the underworld, I said, smiling and greeting the two emissaries. The last time I saw such a grand procession was 1,000 years ago, when Judge Liu entered the Yellow Springs. In the underworld, it is customary that those who have accumulated virtue throughout their lives and whose souls emit a fragrant aura can escape reincarnation and receive official status. Horseface cupped his hands and greeted, "Lady Kuan Yin, thank you for your hard work." Hearing this, I lifted the two precious lamps as usual, expecting them to extinguish with a single breath. However, no matter how hard I blew, the flames only burned brighter. The journey from the mortal world to the Yellow Springs takes 3 years. During this long journey, most souls let go of their earthly attachments. When I blow the lamp that aids the soul, their past is completely let go. After drinking Mengpo's soup, they can enter the next cycle of reincarnation. Therefore, it's very rare to encounter today's situation. At first, I remained calm, but by the 9th breath, I was taken aback. No matter how strong the attachment, no lamp has lasted beyond 6 breaths. What should we do? Please, Lady Kuan Yin, think of a solution. The king of the underworld is waiting for our report. Horseface, thinking I was being difficult on purpose, tried to discreetly slip me some yellow money. I frowned and blocked his hand, shaking my head. If the lamp doesn't go out, it means their earthly attachments are unresolved. He cannot enter the Yellow Springs. Let him get off the carriage. Oxhead and Horseface exchanged glances, then looked at me. Seeing my serious expression, they realized I wasn't being difficult on purpose. They turned and lifted the carriage curtain, inviting the person inside to step out. I fiddled with the lamps in my hands, then suddenly heard a sorrowful wail, as mournful as a cuckoo crying blood, making one cry involuntarily, stirring the heart with sorrow. Startled, I hastily recited a spell to calm myself. Ghost cries of Een Mountain. I couldn't help but laugh. Today must be an auspicious day. Not only do I encounter a rare virtuous soul, but also a wronged ghost. Since sending off Do-E, he is the first. I put away the lamps and approached the soul, who appeared very young, dressed in a plain scholar's robe, with a kind and dignified face, indeed a rare good person. What a pity, to die so young. You've endured much suffering. Now, in the underworld, you will be free from the pain of reincarnation. Isn't that good? What in the mortal world makes you so unwilling to let go? Hearing this, the soul began to sob again, his voice cutting like a sword, piercing the heart. I quickly covered my ears, shouting for him to stop. If you keep crying like this, even the Yellow Springs River will dry up. Tell me, what is your name, where are you from, and what troubles you? If I can resolve it, Kuan Yin, will help you. The soul stopped crying and respectfully bowed. My name is Hu Chai from Chang'an. My family has practiced medicine for generations. Wronged and unjustly killed, I left behind my blind old mother, suffering from oppression, so I cry in distress. A filial son, I nodded. How is your mother being oppressed? Hu Chai replied, I was unable to protect my mother. After my death, a heartless, wicked woman seized our home. How did she seize it? I asked, frowning. She even forced a ghost marriage with me for the sake of our residence. Hu Chai said, his eyes filled with grief, his sorrow again affecting me. A ghost marriage? It's rare to hear of a woman voluntarily engaging in a ghost marriage. I tilted my head, suddenly intrigued by the woman Hu Chai mentioned. Can you tell me what kind of woman she is? Hu Chai hesitated momentarily at my question, as if there were difficulties he was reluctant to speak of. However, owing to my position, he eventually opened up. He said the woman in question was a courtesan at Chang'an's largest brothel, Luoyan Pavilion. Her stage name was Ranxiang, and she was both a performer and a prostitute. When he spoke of her, I noticed that his eyes did not show disdain or mockery, but rather a sense of pity. I thought this might be more than just the compassion of a good man. Ranxiang was not born into a lowly status. Her father worked in the Imperial Medical Academy. Though not a high-ranking official, he was still respected. Therefore, her childhood was scholarly and refined. Like a storybook plot, Hu Chai and Ranxiang were childhood sweethearts, with only a wall separating their courtyards. Unfortunately, Ranxiang's father prescribed the wrong medicine and was punished by the previous emperor, losing his position and being exiled to the frontier. Suddenly, the bustling house next door became deserted and Ranxiang, along with her female relatives, disappeared as if evaporated. Hearing this, I found it strange. From what you said, the emperor did not punish the family members nor confiscate their property. Why did Ranxiang fall into such a low status and end up in a brothel? Hu Chai sighed, a bitter smile appearing inappropriately on his lips. She did it willingly. In Chang'an, almost every man knew of Luoyan Pavilion and the talented and beautiful official's daughter residing there. She was not only skilled in poetry and song but also not a pretentious performer. This made her a dream come true for many men. Ranxiang became famous throughout Chang'an in less than 2 years, and the madam of Luoyan Pavilion practically treated her like a revered ancestor. Originally, she and Hu Chai would likely never cross paths again, living in completely separate worlds. However, fate often has other plans. Hu Chai never expected to meet Ranxiang again at the entrance of a brothel. Is this Dr. Hu? Ranxiang greeted him with a smile as if she didn't recognize him. Who would have thought the girls in our pavilion could have the honor of being treated by the famous Dr. Hu of Chang'an? Hu Chai blushed under her bold gaze. What are you doing here? Hearing this, Ranxiang's eyes darkened, and she sneered. What's wrong with being here? Men like you can throw money around here, but women like us can't earn money from this place. I didn't mean that. Hu Chai shook his head. I've never thought the women here were any different from others. It's just, back then you. In that case, Dr. Hu, please come in. Ranxiang stepped aside to let him in but did not follow. Standing at the door, Hu Chai turned back. I will help you redeem yourself, don't worry. Hearing this, everyone, including the madam, burst into laughter, leaving Hu Chai completely bewildered. The madam spoke first. Dr. Hu, you must have misunderstood. Ranxiang did not sell herself. She willingly signed up here. You. Hu Chai pointed at Ranxiang, his face flushed, unable to speak. He was always tongue-tied, especially around Ranxiang. When they were young, her sharp tongue often left him speechless. Seeing Ranxiang's triumphant smile, he would think, a real man lets a woman win sometimes, especially the woman he likes. If Hu Chai doesn't pamper her, who will? Hu Chai was there to check the girl's health. In this profession, their relationship with doctors was inseparable, as no one wanted to unexpectedly carry a patron's child. They usually had a regular doctor, but he had recently gotten into legal trouble, so Hu Chai was the temporary replacement. When it was Ranxiang's turn, Hu Chai struggled to find her pulse. As he nervously prepared to switch hands, a sweet fragrance wafted to his nose, and a beautiful face loomed large before his eyes. Doctor Hu, it's broad daylight. If you have other thoughts, you'll have to come at night. I won't charge you for the sake of your hard work for my sisters. Hu Chai's face turned beet red, his whole being from chest to head feeling stuffed with cotton, muddled and weak. He wanted to explain, but found his words inadequate. Suddenly, he looked up at Ranxiang and said, Then I'll come find you tonight? Everyone present burst into laughter, and Hu Chai felt even his fingertips burning with embarrassment. Yet, come evening, he found himself inexplicably drawn back to the brothel. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it during the day. How about I take your pulse now? Hee. Doctor Hu, you're so amusing. You always do the right things at the wrong time. This. Ranxiang's eyes were beautiful, like two crescent moons. When she smiled, they curved into the shape of a crescent. For instance, right now, you're standing in the room of the top courtesan of Luoyan Pavilion, but all you think about is taking my pulse. Or, for example, the first time we met, you wanted to redeem me? With this nature of yours, you're bound to suffer losses someday. Hu Chai only fixated on the phrase, the first time we met, stubbornly asking, How? Is this the first time we met? Have you forgotten we were neighbors as children? We even made vows to the moon. Ranxiang cast him a sidelong glance and waved her slender fingers. Oh, come on. You're bringing up ancient history now, talking about our past in a brothel? Haven't you heard the saying, a whore is heartless and an actor is unfaithful? How can you say that about yourself? Hu Chai frowned. Over the years, although he didn't know Ranxiang's whereabouts, he always remembered their past affection, which kept him single long past the usual age for marriage. Now reunited, even in such a place, he couldn't believe it but never intended to belittle her. He thought Ranxiang must have faced many hardships to end up in this situation and decided he would treat her even better in the future. Ranxiang stopped responding to his words. Her soft, cool body silently moved closer. Hu Chai felt like he was in a dream, being gently led into a cool river, the water softly rippling. He followed her movements in the water, the sensation so wonderful that he didn't want to wake up. But he did wake up. Ranxiang, as if they had never been intimate, looked at him coldly. It's dawn. Luoyan Pavilion is closing. Ninger. Hu Chai murmured her childhood name, and immediately, Ranxiang flew into a rage and threw him out. When Ranxiang was a child, her surname was Xue, and her given name was Ning. Hu Chai had once jokingly said, Ning means fragrance, but it's not as good as Ranxiang. He had no idea that the name Xuening would cause her such deep-seated loathing. From then on, Hu Chai went to Luoyan Pavilion every evening, but Ranxiang would rather entertain the customers she usually avoided than say another word to him. Sitting alone in the flower hall, Hu Chai was often teased by the madam. Dr. Hu, why don't I introduce you to Yeno? She's not a courtesan, but she's quite pretty. Why cling to one tree? Terrified, Hu Chai waved his hands frantically. Madam, you misunderstand. I'm not here for pleasure. The madam stopped smiling and scrutinized him. Then what are you here for? Ranxiang is my fiancé, Hu Chai finally said earnestly after a long pause. Haha, Dr. Hu, you're so funny. The madam laughed until tears streamed down her face, not taking him seriously. The courtesan is your fiancé? Does that make you the courtesan's lord? Haha. Hu Chai didn't mind. After thinking for a moment, he said, Since the previous doctor can no longer treat the girls, why don't I take over? I won't charge any fees. No fees? What do you want then? The madam's eyes narrowed warily. Hu Chai smiled. Nothing at all. Please don't misunderstand, madam. I just think these girls have unfortunate lives and want to help them if I can. The madam's eyes shifted thoughtfully. Dr. Hu, you really do love and care deeply, don't you? In addition to sitting idly in Luoyan Pavilion every evening, Hu Chai now also had a regular task of diagnosing patients on the first day of every 10-day period. His frequent visits to the brothel soon became the talk of Chang'an. One day, just after leaving Luoyan Pavilion, he was stopped by a middle-aged man. Dr. Hu, My master invites you." Hu Chai was led to a secluded house, where he found the director of the Imperial Medical Bureau waiting for him. "Dr. Hu, I've heard of your remarkable medical skills and youthful talent. Now there's an opportunity for you to make a fortune. Are you interested?" The director spoke directly, as if confident Hu Chai wouldn't refuse. Many children in the capital are suffering from coughs and asthma due to an epidemic. All the city's doctors are at a loss. "Sir, the epidemic, though severe, is not difficult to treat. I believe 3 doses of common herbs will suffice," Hu Chai replied humbly. The director gave a knowing smile. "I don't think so. Dr. Hu, you're still young. No medical clinic in the capital can cure it. I advise you not to take unnecessary risks. But the Imperial Medical Bureau has developed a pill. Just 1 bottle can cure the illness. Why not take some to sell?" The director handed Hu Chai a porcelain bottle. Hu Chai examined a pill and nodded. "It does seem effective, and children dislike bitter medicine. These pills are suitable." "Ha! Dr. Hu, you indeed have real talent. I'll have the pills sent to your clinic. Each bottle costs 10 taels of silver. You can keep 3 taels per bottle, and the rest, someone will collect regularly. The cost of this medicine is less than 1 tael. Charging 10 taels, how many children in the capital can afford it? If they can't afford it, they can wait to die. Besides this medicine, there's no other cure in Chang'an. Let's see if these people love money more than their children's lives." Hu Chai left with a stern face that day. As he walked away, the director's cold words echoed in his ears. "I hear Dr. Hu's mother has been blind for many years. You've been treating her but lack a crucial ingredient. If you agree to this, I'll provide it for you." Thinking of this, Hu Chai laughed coldly. A gentleman loves wealth, but acquires it justly. His mother would refuse this offer if she knew. 3 days later, Hu Chai set up a free clinic sign at his medical office, offering free treatment for children with the epidemic. Initially, most people didn't believe it. With all other clinics failing to cure the illness except with the expensive pills, who would trust their children to Hu Chai's free treatment? But some poor families, unable to afford the pills, hesitantly brought their children, their faces showing a mix of despair and hope. When their children recovered, their expressions changed from resignation to joy. Word spread quickly. Dr. Hu was more miraculous than those costly pills. He cured with 3 doses of free herbs, while the pills required a whole half-month course and cost a fortune. Soon, no one went to other clinics. All the patients flocked to Hu Chai's door. Hu Chai became a legendary benevolent doctor, and his good deeds spread throughout Chang'an. Many people, learning he was unmarried, brought gifts and proposed their daughters for marriage. Even those without daughters sought to act as matchmakers. For a time, his reputation overshadowed even the most skilled physicians of the Imperial Medical Bureau, and even princes sought his treatment. It seemed he had reached the pinnacle of success. Hearing Hu Chai's words, I became even more perplexed. "So, in seeking benevolence, you received it. But why were you wronged? And what does all of this have to do with Ranxiang?" Hu Chai shook his head. "The director saw me blocking his path to wealth and framed me. He switched the medicine to poison and blamed me for the deaths. During the interrogation, he even claimed that I frequented brothels and, unable to pay my debts, resorted to murder for money." At this, he couldn't hold back his tears and cried loudly. I sighed in exasperation. "Why are you crying now? What's done is done. Why cling to it?" Hu Chai said, "You don't understand, mistress. After I was sentenced to death, my mother fell ill from grief. It was a double blow of misfortune. And that wasn't the worst. Ranxiang, who always ignored me, suddenly came to the Hu residence, fought with my mother for the position of the main wife, claimed we were betrothed, and even forced my mother out of the house after marrying me in front of my coffin." He sobbed uncontrollably. Hearing this, I, who hadn't been angered in centuries, couldn't help but grit my teeth. How could there be such shameless people in this world? Niu Tu and Ma Mian, did you bring the wrong soul? Niu Tu, usually taciturn, spoke up. "Mistress, please calm down. It's often said there are 2 sides to every story. What Doctor Who said is only what he saw and remembered before he died. It's not the whole story. That's true. I nodded. But how do we see the whole picture? We'll need the help of Mistress's treasure, Ma Mian interjected. I laughed coldly. This lamp can reveal the past of a soul, but it's not meant to uncover the truth, only to help souls let go. You two conspired to make me help him settle this case, didn't you? If there's a grievance, go to the Underworld King and check the records of injustices. Why bother me? Ma Mian said, Mistress, please calm down. The Underworld King did investigate, but Ranxiang isn't in the records. The Underworld King couldn't trace her, so we thought to seek your help. Ridiculous. If Ranxiang did all this, how could she not be in the records? The records of injustices contain all grievances between souls. I scoffed as I twisted the lamp wick. Don't think you can waste my power. With a thud, Hu Chai suddenly knelt by the banks of the Yellow Springs. Please, mistress, help me. Hey, you. I quickly stood up. If it were any other ghost servant kneeling to me, I could accept it, but Hu Chai was different. He was destined to become a deity in the underworld. I couldn't accept his kneeling. Mistress, please help me clear my name, properly settle my mother, and Hu Chai implored. Help you punish the heartless and treacherous Ranxiang? I sighed softly. I helped Hu Chai to his feet, shaking my head helplessly. It's not that I won't use the soul lamp for you. I'm afraid that once you see the truth, you'll find it even harder to let go. I reached into my robe and took out one of the lamps, fixing the newly twisted wick in place. You have the time of one incense stick. When the incense burns out, the past will disappear with the light. The wick ignited with golden flames under my spell, gradually expanding into a half-person high halo. Within the halo, clouds churned, and only sounds could be heard, not seen. I murmured softly, the soul departs as the lamp extinguishes. One lamp to see the past. The clouds parted, revealing a 4-courtyard mansion. Hu Chai gasped, this is the Shui family. Crying came from inside the mansion. The view shifted, showing a large flower hall where a young girl with thick bangs and bright, gem-like eyes looked at a middle-aged woman sitting and weeping. Mother, crying won't solve anything. The palace said that if we gather enough money, father will suffer less. Ninger, where can we get that much money? Our relatives and friends have all distanced themselves as soon as they heard about your father. And now, your father has fallen ill. How can we manage this journey? Oh, master. The woman sobbed uncontrollably. Have they all distanced themselves? The girl's eyes lowered, her thick bangs hiding her expression, but a cold smile tugged at her thin lips. Madam, miss, young master who is here, the old servant reported, glancing at the sobbing woman and finally deciding to inform the girl. Don't see him. The girl suddenly raised her head. Tell him we've moved away. In a blink, the scene changed to a simpler courtyard after a few days. The same old servant rushed in, crying, Madam, miss, the master fell ill and died on the journey. Mother, the girl's scream pierced the evening sky, leaving the courtyard in silence. Outside the circle of light, Hu Chai shook his head in disbelief. How could this be? How could Ninger's parents? Madame Shui died of a broken heart upon hearing her husband's death. I sighed and waved my hand, causing the scene to shift rapidly. In the Luoyan pavilion, the girl with bangs stood quietly in the hall. Yes, I voluntarily put myself up for sale. The madam looked incredulous. You seem like a girl from a good family. Why do this? I need money. The girl paused, then added, I need money to bury my parents. How much? 100 taels. 100 taels? You look well dressed. Don't you have any friends or relatives? Selling yourself for 100 taels, isn't that too much? I have no friends or relatives. Do you know the rules of the flower house? For 100 taels, you can't be a clean courtesan. Fine. The girl raised her head, her bright eyes twinkling with a smile. Since I'm selling myself, does it matter if I'm clean or not? I just need the money. I want to be the top courtesan, the one who earns the most. The scene shifted again. The girl's bangs had grown out, styled into a graceful, seductive updo. She coquettishly tugged at the madam. "Mama, please agree." The madam scolded her jokingly. "You little troublemaker, always costing me money, aren't you?" "Oh, Mama, I'm the top courtesan." "How can the top courtesan be a doctor's assistant? Hiring a doctor doesn't cost much." The girl's bright eyes sparkled. "Consider it my repayment for earning you so much money over the years." Seeing this, Hu Chai struggled to speak. So it was her. She planned it all along. She deliberately set up the encounter at Luoyan Pavilion that day. It wasn't by chance. I glanced at him sympathetically. "Do you still want to see more?" Hu Chai nodded, and the scene continued. The scene changed to a room filled with the sweet scent of incense and the faint glow of red lanterns. I quickly waved my hand to skip ahead. The scene stopped with Hu Chai fast asleep, while the girl quietly got up and went outside. "Mama, what are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to check on you." "What? Planning to leave this place?" The madam peered over the girl's shoulder into the room, but was blocked. "No, it's just a fleeting romance, nothing more," the girl said with a serious face. "You're quite odd, you know. Many girls dream of this life, yet you refuse it. Hu Dafu is young, talented, from a good family, and most importantly, he's devoted to you. He's waited for you all these years. Yes, he's wonderful. But because he's so wonderful, I don't deserve him. Why didn't you seek help from the Hu family back then?" The madam asked the question everyone wanted to ask. Because he deserves better." The girl closed her eyes. "With my parents dead, and being the daughter of a criminal, how could I seek refuge with the Hu family? Even if we had an engagement, I wouldn't have done it. Mama just feels sorry for you, living in this brothel, wasting your life." "That's not right. Are you not here too? How is it wasted? We all work to make a living. My father was once respectable, but one mistake cost him his life. If he had conspired with the imperial physicians, he wouldn't have been exiled and penniless. What is honorable and what is shameful? This world laughs at the poor, not at the courtesan." Hearing this, I couldn't help but turn to Hu Chai. "Do you still think she planned all this? If you do, we should stop here and let it go." Hu Chai gripped my hand. "No, I want to see more." I said nothing and turned back to the scene. At the Hu residence, red lanterns were hanging high and the atmosphere was festive. A carriage stopped at the door, and out stepped none other than Ranxiang, adorned with jewels like a proper lady of the house. Suddenly, a blind old woman rushed over, grabbing her sleeve. "You, give me back my home. Give me back my son, you." Ranxiang glared at her maid, who immediately pulled the old woman away. "I told you not to show up here again, didn't you understand?" she said, and walked into the house. The view followed her inside, where Ranxiang instructed the maid quietly, "Take her back gently, and make sure she doesn't fall." Hu Chai's face was full of doubt. I smiled knowingly. "Ranxiang also comes from a family of physicians. She managed your clinic well. You've wandered through the underworld for 3 years. Ranxiang has become a famous physician in Chang'an, rivaling your own reputation. Look." I pointed to the scene in the palace. "She has gathered numerous pieces of evidence to petition the emperor. Your mother, being elderly and blind, couldn't clear your name. Ranxiang had to marry you posthumously to have the standing to fight this case. Thus, the unusual event of a courtesan marrying at a funeral. The imperial physician was powerful and well-connected. Ranxiang feared your mother would be implicated, so she had to send her away for her safety. Fortunately, the new emperor is wise and ordered a thorough investigation, which exposed the crimes of the imperial physician and his associates, clearing your name. Look, what's that?" As I spoke, the scene showed imperial attendants carrying a plaque inscribed with "Miraculous Hands Reviving Spring" towards the Hu residence. Ranxiang directed the servants to hang it above the main entrance, inspecting it carefully before saying, "Husband, I have not tarnished your reputation. I cannot repay your love, but I couldn't let others defame you. I had to marry you to clear your name. Will you blame me?" She laughed softly, but soon began to cry. "Madam arrives," someone called from behind. Ranxiang hurriedly turned and ran over, kneeling down. Daughter-in-law is unfilial. Please forgive me, mother. I know everything. Good child, you. Hu Laofu had not finished her words when Ranxiang, under the guise of holding her hand, pressed on her pulse point, causing her to faint. Hu Chai was startled. What is Ninger doing? I sighed. You should have guessed. Her medical skills are almost as good as yours. She knows what medicine is needed for your mother's eyes. My mother's eyes. Hu Chai pondered for a moment before suddenly shaking his head frantically. No. Seeing this, I spoke for him. Your mother's eyes required a pair of living eyes, which is why you could never cure her. Such a method, trading one life for another, is indeed cruel. Hu Chai seemed to realize something and wanted to keep watching, but I had already raised my hand to extinguish the lamp wick. The incense has burned out. Hu Dafu, your past ties should be severed. With that, I looked past Hu Chai to the road that leads from the human world to the underworld. A woman walked slowly towards us, without the usual fanfare, yet moving very quickly. As she got closer, I noticed her beautiful face was without eyes. I leaned in and took a deep breath, smelling a sweet scent identical to Hu Chai's. So that's it. I laughed. The true spirit of fragrance is her. Hu Dafu's deep bond with Ranxiang caused his spirit to carry her scent. Hu Chai looked at Ranxiang's empty eye sockets and suddenly knelt. I care not for any meritorious soul, nor do I care about escaping the cycle of reincarnation. I am willing to trade 10 lifetimes for Ninger's eyes. Please, Aunt, don't let her enter the underworld like this. Hearing this, I tilted my head and smiled. That is beyond my control. Her soul has not yet settled, and her consciousness is not present. But considering how quickly she traversed the 3 years of the journey, the underworld must have already prepared an official position for her. I will write a letter to the king of the underworld. Hopefully, he will grant me a favor out of our long-standing friendship and allow you both one lifetime together before she takes her position. Hu Chai bowed his head repeatedly, and this time I did not stop him. I signaled Horseface with my eyes to take them to the underworld. Aunt, did you see Hu Chai's true form? The usually silent Oxhead spoke up for the second time, hitting the mark. I scolded with a smile. You creature, not quite human nor ghost, are surprisingly clever. Hu Chai's true form nearly deceived even the soul lamp. You and the king of the underworld have deceived me greatly. Hu Chai is just a piece of withered wood. Why go to such lengths for him, Aunt? The king of the underworld only intended to reveal his true form to complete the merit, but Aunt, you led him to open his emotional block. Why? If you wanted him to reveal his true form, why make me use the soul lamp? The king of the underworld and you all felt compassion, yet made me bear it alone. Isn't that a bit unfair? I crossed my arms and looked at Oxhead, inwardly astonished. I had suspected, but didn't expect Hu Chai to not be an ordinary soul. It seems the king of the underworld couldn't bear for Ranxiang's soul to enter the underworld and lose her connection with Hu Chai. So, he orchestrated this play, using my soul lamp to plant the seed of emotion in this piece of withered wood. All things in the world, once they have feelings, are not far from attaining true enlightenment. And, please don't be angry. We all know that you are the most compassionate in the underworld. This withered wood was fortunate to be enlightened by you. If it attains enlightenment in the future, it will surely remember your great kindness. Oxhead spoke flattering words, his bull eyes gazing towards the bridge of helplessness. I nodded perfunctorily, knowing in my heart that they probably hoped more for a shared reincarnation than for enlightenment. Like me, standing at the edge of the underworld for thousands of years, yet still not knowing what it means to attain enlightenment or true fruit. In the end, is it the heartless who attain enlightenment, or those with feelings who attain true fruit?